CRM security, it's actually somewhat straightforward, right? There's just kind of the initial setup, and then after that, it's just how you wish to implement the security for those individuals. So when you're talking about CRM security, we've always had the capability to restrict in the file area what a user would be able to view or see or perform actions against. We've always had that type of security, which could be done at the entity level. It could actually be done at an individual file if we needed to. If we needed to get that granular in our security, we could have security groups that would say, not only can you see the entity in the file area, but what could you do in there? So the CRM security feature allows now the capability to also add security against what can be seen by the CRM module. So on my screen right now, I'm logged in as an individual that has the capability to see everything. There's really not a restriction set up for this user. That means they can search in the very top, and if they want to search for an entity, they can. That entity will come back, and they'll be able to see not only the file area, but CRM, projects, all that good stuff. They can see everything. But what if you had a user where you said, I've got this one user, it could be an outsourced, an offshore individual, outsourced individual, where you say, I need that individual not to see everything. I want them to see just dedicated entities in the file area, so we can have security set up that way. But I also want to limit or not allow them to see other entities, and at the same time, I don't want them to see any CRM related information about those entities. Well, that's CRM. So first thing we would do is there is some IT on the server, some configuration that has to be done. We're not going to go through that today, mainly because that's a one-time setup that's done on the server. That requires working with our IT group and getting that feature turned on that allows for CRM security. And now, and also, I just want to also let you know is that with the CRM security and how it works, there's a process that when CRM security is applied to a user, there is a process that runs only once a day right now. It runs at midnight. So even if you were to set up, like I'm going to do today, and I set up a CRM security on an individual to restrict what they can see based on CRM information, I have to have that process manually run to be able to see that information change, because I'm not going to wait till midnight and have all of you wait till midnight before that process would run so we could see that. It can be run manually, and we're looking at adding additional capabilities where the user, the admin at the client side, would have that capability to perform that feature. Because right now if you wanted to do CRM security, you are going to have to reach out to us right this moment and say, I've made a change to security. I need that applied. We have to run that process for you right this moment.
For, let's say, if we wanted to have that security set on this client and that client, and then tomorrow we wanted it on this client and that client, would we have to reach out to you twice?
No, if you know both clients at the same time, let me put it this way. It's not that important that we know who you put the security on. We just need to know that you need us to update the security settings. That's it. It's not that important whether I know how many you've done. I just need to know you need the services to be restarted that applies or pushes out this new security based on who it's been assigned to a user.
Like if we make some changes to some security settings one day, and then we make some more security setting changes 2 days later, we would have to reach out to ConArk both days to apply those settings.
That is correct, yes, because right now the automated process says I'm going to run at midnight. And you would have to do anything if you said, well, I made the settings today, and the person that I made the settings for doesn't need access right this moment. That's not going to happen until tomorrow, or maybe it's going to happen a couple days from now. You can say, all right, I made the settings. I'm just going to go ahead and wait till midnight and let those go ahead and kick in automatically. Perfect. Or you can reach out to us and say, I made the settings. I want to make sure the settings are correct. So I'd like to have that process go ahead and generate. And we're also looking at, just to kind of give you an FYI, we're also looking at changing that process where it can be customized to potentially run every 2 hours automatically, not just at midnight, or every 4 hours. So that's another layer that we're looking at adding. And that just depends on the size of the client, whether or not that will be in a 2 or 4 hour setting. Yeah, all right, so first thing, your system administrator would create a new security group. And so in this example here, you can see I have a demo of CRM security that's set up here. Now, you would go through here and you would set up the security. However, if you were to place a user in this security group, what do you want that user capability to be, right? So if I'm going to set up CRM security, I might say, if you're in this group, yeah, you can still see an entity, excuse me, you can still see CRM information, you can work on projects. You would determine what this individual, if they were to be put into CRM security, you would just then tell us what they could do. It's pretty standard like you do with any other type of security. You just make that determination based on your business policies on what you want that individual to see. And as you can see, currently there's 2 individuals that are set up right now to be able to be part of this CRM security. All right, so that's the first step, is we just basically define what is CRM security. Now, the next thing you would do is you start applying it. And that means we have to put individuals in this security group. So in this case here, this Amanda Sloan has been placed into this security group. So if I look at her subscriber information, since she's an internal user who accesses iChannel, what I've done is I've come in and I applied that new security setting to her profile. I mean, she's in this group right now. Now, to turn on CRM security for an entity that allows Amanda the opportunity to see an entity and restrict all other entities, what you do is you go to the entity you wish to grant Amanda the CRM security. So then I would just go and search for an entity, the standard process of finding an entity that she could work with. So let's say I have an entity here called SRU entity. I go to the file, and when this loads, so this is the entity I want to give the CRM security to, and that means Amanda is only going to be allowed to see this entity and no other entities. So I go to the site permission, and I have all of the security settings that are available or have been configured in iChannel. Now what I want to do is locate the CRM security group. And so I'm going to just navigate down a little bit. Now you'll notice that all of the other security groups, there's no permissions. So can't do anything else. I'll find that CRM group right here, and I'm going to turn it on. If you remember in the CRM Security Global settings, it says there was all of these features that could be there. I'm going to override the global permissions. That means I'm going to look at the source security group, which is the CRM under the security tab, and I'm going to override it. And there are 2 key identifiers that trigger the CRM security. That is view entity and view documents. Those are the 2 that are in the configuration file that determines if CRM security is on or off. In this case, I'm turning it on only at this entity. And if you remember, Amanda's in the security group called Demo CRM. Since she's in that security group, I've gone to the actual entity and said, I'm going to override all other permissions and turn on just these 2 that are required for CRM security for her. That means Amanda now has been restricted and she cannot see any other entities except now this one, because this is the only place I've allowed her to have visibility into all of my clients or entities. You're basically saying if I put any individual, any internal user in this base security group, everything I check, they have the capability of doing. The CRM security and the entity security, you'll notice on the screen here, look at only the questions it's asking. It's only information related to whether or not you can view the entity. The reason that's checked is that opens up the CRM. And then the view documents is where the file area is and being able to view documents related to that entity. That's CRM security. That's basically saying oh, I do know if I look at the overall security, they've also granted workflows. Oh, they've also granted activities, let's say, or discussions. All of the other features are sitting in my base security group. All this question is now asking is, okay, you're going to override everything only based on the information on the screen. Oh, Amanda will be able to see the entity, which opens up CRM, and she can still see the document.
Now, if somebody has, let's say we have another group that is used to manage really everybody else. So when we come in here and override the global permissions, it's really only with that one group. So everybody else's permissions aren't affected, correct?
Oh, that's absolutely correct. You remember if you look at Amanda's, if we go back and look at Amanda's profile says in her security setting on her subscriber record says she's only in this one security group. So you would only place the individuals where you're wanting to either grant or not grant the entity and the CRM module. Now, and to kind of give you an idea, I've got both of them up, so let me kind of give you an idea. Here is Amanda. If I'm logged in now as Amanda, I granted the CRM entity to Amanda, and I've granted actually another one just to show you that she has only 2 entities. Now, if you look back, though, I'm going to go back up here. There's more entities out here. There's a lot more entities out here. I can see a lot more entities in this person's view because they're not in the CRM security group that is restricting what can and cannot be seen or acted on. There's others. But here's what happens for Amanda. If Amanda was out there and she was trying to search for another entity. So let's say she tried to search for the GBK entity in her dashboard. So she goes up here and she says GBK. We know that's an entity in iChannel for this instance. It's going to come back and say, no, there's nothing there. The only thing she can search for is what she has permission to see. You're basically taking, I mean, think about it, right? If there was 100 entities out here, you only granted Amanda the entity of SRU and the other entity that was on the screen. You went to the actual entity, you opened up that security group for just that, and since Amanda's in that security group, that's all she can see.
And then what about if you go back to her dashboard?
Mm-hmm.
Like under, you know, my tasks or my assigned documents, you can pick somebody else's name in there. So is that the same thing, or it just comes up with nothing?
Yes, she can still search. Yep, she can still search on other internal users, but the only thing that's going to return back is based on the 2 entities she has permission to see.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, this is pretty much what we need.